Time now for the Daily Answer, sponsored by Salem Surround on The Answer Now TV.
He is Pennsylvania's junior senator and one of my favorites, as a matter of fact, because he actually does make time for us. Now that the government's back and open for business again, some of his priorities, he always likes to stop and make some time for us. Pennsylvania Senator Dave McCormick. Senator, good to see you again. Welcome in.
Hey, good morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And I guess you're probably happy to get back about the business of the people again. I know that's something you've wanted to do for a while. Must feel good. What's happening on Capitol Hill?
Listen, of all the dumb things I've seen since I came to Washington, this is the dumbest. Having been a business guy for 25 years, this was a complete disaster of a decision by the Democrats to shut down the government. We were asking for a clean continuing resolution. This is standard fare, as you know, Chris. Republicans had voted for this many times under Biden, their own budget, and they tried to hold the government hostage and hurt working people, federal employees and people on SNAP and so forth in Pennsylvania, 2 million SNAP recipients, all to make a political point. To try to use it as negotiating leverage on the subsidies for Obamacare from COVID, which we can talk about. And in the end, it was a complete capitulation and a complete disaster for the Democrats. And this is why people have lost faith in their government. And so I was glad to vote to open the government 15 times. I was glad to have my fellow Senator John Fetterman vote with me. And I'm glad it's behind us so we can get back to the people's business.
I know that you have been in contact with him since his fall. He's doing well. He's on the mend. But even prior to that, he was on a bit of a book tour, and he's been very, very critical of his own party. Have you been monitoring that?
Absolutely. He and I talk regularly, and, we don't agree on more things than not, Chris, but we've agreed that we're going to work together on behalf of the people of Pennsylvania to try to get things done. And he, the thing I appreciate about him, I trust him. He's forthright. He's honest. He speaks his mind. He's authentic. And, I think I was probably the first person he called from the hospital. And he said, listen, I'm fine. The pacemaker had a little bit of a misfire. So I got faint and fell. And he said, I smashed up my face, 24 stitches. And I said to him, shameless. I mean, you'll do anything to sell books, Fetterman. So he's back in the game, and I'm glad he's okay.
Dave McCormick with us, United States Senator from Pennsylvania, a state where a lot of people don't necessarily consider Pennsylvania, although I guess you should if you know the name Hershey. You know it as chocolate, of course, but Asher's chocolate, I would be hard-pressed to forget that the good people in southeastern Pennsylvania make something called Asher's chocolate. A lot of people don't know about, but we love it, and they're great people and a great family. The chocolate industry during this tariff battle has been walloped because cocoa, maybe a little bit in Hawaii. Somebody corrected me last week and said, we do grow some in Hawaii. I said, well, yeah, but not for the amount of chocolate we consume here. So.
Yeah.
The president's backed off this a little bit, and you issued a response to that.
Yeah, well, we have, we're a huge chocolate producer. Asher Chocolate, Bob Asher's a good friend, and, of course, Hershey and many other chocolate manufacturers. And we've got about 50,000 jobs in Pennsylvania. We're one of the biggest chocolate producers that are either in the chocolate industry or connected to it. And when the tariffs were put in place, this was one of those cases where there's nothing you can do. You can't move your supply chain, or, you're stuck if you're a chocolate producer. So I sent a letter to Jameson Greer, our trade rep, and had many conversations with him and our chocolate companies. And I was, really, it's just over and over again, you see this from President Trump, just common sense. And so, he lays out a vision and he makes adjustments as necessary. And this was one of those things where it just made sense. And they modified the tariff policy on cocoa, and it's going to be to the great benefit of Pennsylvania and those chocolate manufacturers. So I think it was important, and I wanted to highlight, this reciprocal tariff agenda, which I have supported 100%. It only makes sense if you're able to be agile and make the adjustments that are needed, and that's what the president and his team have been able to do.
I was talking about this yesterday, Senator, and I wrote about it in my newsletter. The Supreme Court is considering tariffs right now. I know economically they're not everybody's favorite, but I kind of view them as an Article 2 protection from the president. I actually think, particularly when you're talking about steel, let's talk about another thing that made Pennsylvania what it is today. Maybe not so much anymore, but steel and China. As China's eyeing, cartels and poisoning our communities, and you're talking about fentanyl pouring in. I feel like the tariffs are an arsenal, a tool in Trump's arsenal to bring China to heel. It seems more important than just saying something as simple as it's a perfunctory tax. I think he has the ability in an emergency setting to use these and leverage them. Is he doing it appropriately in your view?
Yeah, I really think he is. And if you had any doubt of the national security risk that we have with China, just go back to COVID, and our entire pharmaceutical supply chain was in the hands of the Chinese. Or go to rare earth metals, where the magnets, the very threat of stopping the export of those to America from China would have brought many industries to a grinding halt. No, there's huge, and of course the fentanyl crisis, where the prefactors are coming from China. There is enormous national security interest at stake, which is why I've read the legal case. I'm not a lawyer, but I come down just on the common sense view that these truly are national security risk, and the president needs to have the authority to protect America's interest. Then, as a second, just practical matter, are we going to knock the president's legs out from under him in the middle of these negotiations when he's getting much better agreements and protecting America's interests? So I'm not sure what the Supreme Court will do. I've read a lot of different analyses, but I've voted strongly in protecting the president's authorities and allowing him to negotiate on behalf of all of us.
Senator Dave McCormick joins us. Obamacare, obviously the whole reason Democrats say they shut down the government was over the idea of subsidizing Obamacare, which, yes, people's premiums are going through the roof because Obamacare was never affordable. It was only affordable because we artificially kept it, quote, cheaper with taxpayer infusion of dollars. So here we are. It's got to be dealt with. What do you think will happen? What should happen here, in your view? If you were king and could make it so, would you just blow Obamacare up? Is there a fix? Are you guys talking about subsidies for a limited time? What do you know?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think, and this is what happens when the liberal media is setting the narrative. I'm waiting to see the story that says Obamacare was an utter failure. As you said, 15 years ago, this was a signature legislation of the president, and he said it was going to deliver three things. It was going to make it more affordable, he was going to create greater access, and it was going to ensure greater quality. It has failed by any objective measure on all three of those. Healthcare costs are spiraling out of control. Access has not been improved, and the quality of our healthcare system relative to other countries, despite us spending a lot more per person, is terrible. So it's been an utter failure, and the reason that these subsidies were put in place during COVID, and now there's this argument about continuing in them, is that it is an utter failure and the costs are going up so dramatically. So, listen, my position is, first of all, we weren't going to negotiate on that with the Democrats trying to hold a gun to our head. I do think this is a real issue for working families. So I would not have voted, nor will I support the idea of just extending the existing subsidies because they're essentially giving subsidies to people that are making a ton of money. But I do think, and there's a lot of fraud, but I do think trying to find some way to give some bridge to working families that are living paycheck to paycheck that just can't take a 15% increase in their healthcare premium, in their healthcare insurance and premiums, is probably, I hope, where we end up in something that I would support. And listen, I don't think our current path is sustainable. We're going to need to go back to fundamentals on Obamacare and design something that gives the consumer greater control, greater autonomy in the making their choices. They don't have that today. Something that creates adequate competition. We don't have that today. And finally, something that roots out this rampant corruption and fraud that is driving up costs for all American people. So that's how I see it. But that's a heavy lift. We got a lot of work to do.
Senator Dave McCormick, we are always appreciative of your time, sir. Thank you very much for giving us some of it today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Have a great day, Chris.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel. Stay informed anytime, anywhere with the Salem News Channel and 9:30 a.m. TheAnswer.com. This has been The Daily Answer, sponsored by Salem Surround on The Answer Now TV.